Hello and welcome to Point of View. I'm Tania Nugent, and on this program we'll be sharing our thoughts and experiences, celebrating achievements and unpacking some of the issues that matter to women. And with us today on set, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Philma Kelagai, who is the co-founder of the Leniata Legacy, owner of World Supermodel PNG, and is a passionate advocate against gender-based violence. We have Ms. Cleopatra Coulter, who is a writer, radio announcer and entrepreneur. And our special guest today is Ms. Leanne Resson, who is the Deputy Executive Officer with the Buk Bilong Pikinini charity organisation. Ladies, welcome to the program. So we'll be looking mostly on today's show at the critical time of early childhood for learning. And it got me thinking about my early childhood and walking down memory lane and reaching right back in and to find what my earliest memories are. And then I just started thinking, you know, what do you remember from your earliest childhood? Cleo, what's your recollections? What's your earliest memories?
I think one of the funniest and probably embarrassing, I should say, was when my father used to tell me to put my books on my head and run around the house as a punishment if I did not do my homework. Oh my goodness. And it was, all my friends would stand there, and I think that was the moment when I started not liking books. Yeah. But I have some also good memories where I remembered someone stealing from my mother in the market, and that was back when I was 2 years old, as my mother told me. So yeah.
Wow, that's a long time back. 2 is a very early memory to be holding in your mind. And so was that a frightening experience, and is that why you remember it?
It is, yeah, because I heard lots of people saying stuff about rascal and police and, you know, arresting someone. Yeah, I think that was how I remembered it.
Okay. Philly, what's your earliest memory?
Well, there are quite a few memories, but the memory that sticks out the most was when I was in preschool. There was a preschool at Unitec where I still lived before, and there was a competition called Miss Preschool, and I absolutely wanted to win. And I remember asking my dad to bill us me the best out of everyone. And there was another Milan girl who had really, really good bill us, and I was worried that she would win. So I pulled one of her boys off her bill so that she would be upset. And then, yeah, she got upset and left, so I won.
So you've always been a very competitive woman. It's been in you.
I like to see it as initiative.
Yeah. Creative, yes. Leanne, your earliest memory?
I have a few, but one that really sticks out is when my mom took me to school for the first day. That was in grade 1, and it was raining, and I remember I was thinking, it was quite scary for me because I hadn't been to a preschool or a kindergarten earlier. So, but the fact that Mom was there, I felt safe, and that it was going to be a good day, a good first day at school.
So you have a warm, fuzzy memory. Yeah,
Yes.
my memories are very similar to Cleo in that it's from my early childhood before the age of 3, and they were quite traumatic things that I remember. You know, cracking my head, falling over, sticking a spade in my toe, the earthquakes in Rabaul. So all before the age of 3. And it's really interesting actually, because we don't really store much of our early childhood in our memories. Most of us don't really remember much from before the age of about 3. And usually 6 or 7 is about the age that we start remembering. So that's like the first day of school, remember, and all of that. So this is it's a phenomenon called childhood amnesia, that we forget things from the earliest years. But that doesn't mean that what happens in our early childhood is not critical for our futures. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And after the break, we'll explore this a little bit more when we unpack the importance of early childhood education for our Pikininis. Welcome back to Point of View. Increasingly around the world, we're becoming more and more aware of the importance of early childhood learning. Brain development is most rapid in the early years of life, and when the quality of stimulation, support and nurturing is lacking, child development is seriously affected. So it really begins at birth. And of course, by and large, it's the women in our society that are the primary caregivers. So the role women can play here is a crucial one. Leanne, just tell us a little bit about, as a professional in early childhood learning and early childhood development, explain a little bit more about how crucial those early years from birth to maybe 6 or 7 are for a child's learning.
Thank you, Tania. So early childhood education occurs between 0 to 8 years. Brain development especially is crucial between the years of 3 and 5, because that's where all the learning and everything happens. That's why you'll see children between that age group able to remember almost everything at once, things like learning 2 or 3 different languages at one time, learning to play a simple instrument, or little things like that, basics like this, letters, sounds, and they tend to remember that the very first time you teach them that. So it is crucial, it is important.
Yeah, they pick things up very fast.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned about we can simultaneously learn languages. And if you put it in the context, I guess, of imagine now, as an adult, me trying to learn a language. I mean, I just wouldn't, it would be much harder now. You think about if you tried to learn German or French, but when we're growing up, that to me kind of really is a good example of, how we can relate to the difference in our brains at different ages. And I did touch on the fact that it is our women, it is our mothers at home who are the primary caregivers, and not all of us have the access to early childhood education, formal early childhood education. So there are things I think that women can take upon themselves, I guess. What are some of the things that mothers can do, or women who are looking after young children at home, who the children don't get to go to a childhood or a kindergarten or whatever, some of the things that mothers can do? Leanne.
Okay, mainly you could start with the basics. So that's, you just get them to, if you want to teach them letters, you get them to, you say the letter, you point to the letter. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be, straight, in the alphabet A to Z, but just to get them talking. Also, it would be helpful if once they start recognizing letters, the formation of it, if you could have little labels around the house, like table, chair, simple things like that. And this will help children greatly before they can go to school.
So I did touch on the fact that in our society, it is principally the women, the mothers, who are the primary caregivers of our children. And they're in a great position, I guess, to be able to start thinking about things that they can do to provide some sort of early childhood education for their children, especially if they can't access formal places like Buk Bilong Pikinini or like kindergarten or whatever. Leanne, what are some of the what are some tips? What's some advice you can give as an early childhood professional for mothers out there watching this program that might want to know what they can do to give their child that head start?
Well, mothers, as we know, are the children's first teacher. Okay, so at home, if you're not able to afford, as we know, in Papua New Guinea, it's expensive, early childhood education. So what you can do at home, start with the basics, getting them to recognize shapes, colors. Those are the very basics that you can teach your children at home. Labeling things around the house. For example, the table or the chair, they may not know how to spell it straight away, but just getting the sounds out there, recognizing that the word chair comes together with this, you're already teaching them something, so that's important.
Yeah, so there's simple things like that. So Cleopatra, you're a young Papua New Guinean woman. What was your early childhood like, and what sort of exposure did you have in your childhood to books and reading, and how old were you?
I cannot say when I started reading books because my parents were both great advocates for books. My dad was an English teacher. Mom, I think her highest education was grade 6, but she really loved reading books. And I got to read books, but sometimes I ran away from reading books because my mom told like the saddest stories ever, and I'd cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I mentioned earlier on, if I did not read books, I had to run around the house with my book on my head. So yeah, books were part of me growing up.
So your parents were book lovers and bookworms. So this is just a general question to everybody, just thinking about the community around you and your neighbourhood and even in your villages. What sort of early childhood education do you see the children in your particular area having access to? Maybe Philly, if you could start.
Okay, so I just moved into Hohola. It's a great suburb. I see a lot of children on the weekends just hanging out at the markets, watching a lot of television. There's one particular boy who works at a food shop, a little shop, and he's just genius at counting money. He can give you change without even calculating with a calculator like I use. So I'm not sure whether that's part of that, but I think it helps him in his maths.
Yeah.
There's also the negative side of it because I see a lot of drunk activities and a lot of swearing, so kids are exposed to these types of behaviors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting point, actually, because we're talking about the early child learning in the context of formal education and learning to read and literacy and education. But there's also, a lot of negative things that people can pick up just from, young people can absorb from the environment that they live in, like negative behaviours can heavily impact on young people. Leanne, can you elaborate a bit on that for us, like how behaviours in the home can pass on to children?
Yes, like we mentioned earlier in the discussion, children tend to copy what they see, and that's taken to classrooms as well. And also, if there's violence also in the community or at home, and they take that with them and they go take that to school, to the classroom, sometimes it upsets them. And once it upsets a child, that's it for the day. Their brain switches off, and things that they're able to learn for the day, it won't happen because they're already upset. And sometimes the behavior that they take to the classroom as well, teachers have to understand that, the child may not be that way. That's not the behavior that, the child is, that's with the child. But it's because of something that they have copied. It's a similar thing when your child may be a well-behaved child, and then from school they come home and you notice that they're behaving in a certain way. Some may say naughty or a way that they're not, that your child does not act like that. And it's because they copy that from the classroom as well. So it's from the home or the community to the classroom, and they get the behavior from school as well.
Yeah, do you find that that's something that you see a lot? Do you think it's prevalent here? Is it common, or is it rare for children to be having those kind of impacts in the home?
It's common.
Yeah.
It's common. Also, what they watch on TV influences the way they act or talk as well.
Yeah.
All right, so Leanne, what you're saying is that the environment that a child grows in is vital, and it must be protected to, impart good behaviors to children when they're in that stage where they should be learning positive things.
Yes, because it influences their learning as well. So, yes.
I think it's not just with parents, as a society, we all have a responsibility to show the kind of behaviors that we'd like to see from our children and from ourselves. So I think we all as a community have a responsibility to be the type of people that we'd like to see from other Papua New Guineans and our children too.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Well, it's time for a quick break now, but when we return, we'll be talking about a particular passion of mine, and I think a few other of the panelists here today, books, and getting our kids into reading. Well, welcome back everyone. Well, many of us as parents will be all too familiar with that enormously proud moment when our children first start to be able to read. The ability to read, literacy, is indeed the key to a person's education and the key to the kind of future they can hope for. And such organisation has been working tirelessly for 10 years to bring the skill of literacy to our most vulnerable children across Papua New Guinea. And Leanne is a Deputy Executive Officer with Buk Bilong Pikinini. Give us an outline of the work that Buk Bilong Pikinini does, Leanne.
So Buk Bilong Pikinini, apart from supplying books or providing books to children within the community where the libraries are, Buk Bilong Pikinini also runs a early childhood literacy session or classes in all our libraries. There are actually 18 libraries across 7 provinces to date, and all the libraries run 2 sessions, and all the sessions are structured so the teachers, we have internally trained teacher librarians who take the children through the basics in early childhood literacy. And in the afternoons, we call it our school support program, where children from other schools, from primary schools, elementary, high school, can come in and just read or use the books in the libraries to do their homeworks, assignments, and they can even borrow books from the library that's within their community.
Do you think that books should be more available to our communities? Like if Buk Bilong Pikinini Library is not there, should there be other means of having books, readily available to children or whoever wants to learn?
Yes, books should be available. Books are important. I know some people may say that, why have books when you can get stuff off the internet and all that. Not everyone can access the internet, so books are still very vital part for learning things that are you can't learn when what's around you, and you want to know about what's outside around the world, and that's what books do. So yes, it's important. Books may be expensive also, but with Buk Bilong Pikinini, we try our best to donate books to the communities, share what we have coming in with the communities as well, from the libraries and also out in remote rural areas as well.
Sure. I was really interested when you say you have that program for children. I don't know much about it, so can you tell me what exactly consists in a day for a child who attends one of these programs? What do they do?
So in a structured Buk Bilong Pikinini class, it's 2 hours. From 8 to 10 and 10:30 to 12:30. So in a session, children learn about phonics, they learn about virtues, they learn social skills, how to interact with each other, which is important at that early age as well. Other life skills, much needed life skills, apart from the phonics that they learn. That's what we do in our libraries, all our libraries.
Leanne, it's been 10 years, the organisation's been going, and demand, of course, has increased. You've got 18 libraries all around the country, which is a remarkable achievement. But what sort of results have you seen? Because, of course, you've had 10 years now. How is it working? Are children learning to read? Tell us, share some of the stories of your success.
We have parents every year coming in, parents of children who have moved on to elementary schools. Some of our students would be in early high school now, grades 9 even. They come back and they share with the teacher librarians that, their child in the school has, even been the darks or topped this, their class and all that. And it's very satisfying for all of us, because that's what we want to hear. And they have also shared, or they've even asked, us if we could, have a school of our own and all that. So, positive comments like that, I guess we can say helpful for us as well.
Yeah, because of course one of the things as well is it prepares children for that formal structure of primary school. It's not just learning to read and write, but it's just things like lining up and you know, putting their hand up before they speak and things like that.
Routine. Yeah. In the first couple of weeks, the children at the libraries are taught that, you know, how to behave positively. They learn routines, how to interact, manners, which is important, social skills when growing up. So they learn all that as well in the libraries, and that is taught to them in the first couple of weeks when they attend the library.
Can anybody just join, or do you have a application form? Who is eligible to be in Buk Bilong Pikinini?
So at this stage, we have we'd like to have children who are disadvantaged mainly, and then children, if there's space. Our numbers are quite limited because we have a ratio of 15 children to 1 teacher, just to make sure there's, you know, supervision and all that learning is taking place, effective learning. So we have a lot of children, parents lining up, but unfortunately we cannot take them all.
I just want to confirm that it's free. It's
It
free
is
for the
free.
disadvantaged.
Yes, it is
That's
free.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's why we have long lines of parents
Yeah.
queuing up. Yes.
Yeah, so with that, you know, it is free, but you do have a certain criteria of being vulnerable, of coming from a vulnerable background, and so what are some other ways? I mean, the libraries are open in the afternoons after school, so even if you don't enrol at the library and you're not there, kids can still come in, yeah?
Oh, yes. As I mentioned earlier in the discussion, yes, that they can come in after lunch. Our librarians, teacher librarians are there. They'll be happy to assist the children. The children can even borrow books. So everyone is welcome, yes.
Wow, so there you go. There's opportunity there, people, to take your kids to a Buk Bilong Pikinini library after school, even if you're not enrolled there, you can still access this valuable resource of books. So we're going to take a quick break now, and when we return, we'll be heading onto the streets to hear what people out there have to say about books and reading. Back soon. Welcome back to Point of View. We've been talking about books and reading and the importance of starting to learn to read from a very young age. Our effervescent roving reporter, Isabel Druma, was out and about in Port Moresby this week to find out what people out there have to say.
So my favorite books were Asterix and Obelix, which was written by a French author. I went around Moresby to ask people what they thought about books. So let's go take a look. Now you said reading more book too?
No, book tampu, Bible book tampu, that's all me place about reading.
Yeah, I'm plus I reading.
Yeah, one time if me feel like.
My favorite book is of course the Bible, but there's one particular one that's I have been reading. I've loaned it to somebody else. It's the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, me reading newspaper and Bible stories.
Yeah, me reading book of Pisinta, so English and hard Greek.
Yeah, me reading plenty them newspaper and all 100 book number, any books.
Now you said any more Pikinini blue or reading more book or big man?
Example, or is about reading.
Yes, me plus aligning all reading books na so more pictures. Yes, me aligning reading talk longer na reading more story books.
Opening mind blow lo education side.
I want my child to grow in, to have good education. Yeah.
Anything was something I'm starting them all mama na papa yet. I will so on the beginning discipline I'm sakamin sa house line so I'm starting the mama na papa yet on beginning.
Yes, people need to learn to read and write in their own languages or other languages like English.
Okay, now you plus reading more book too, lo school?
No, I'm not reading.
You don't read, huh? Why? Mommy na daddy blue sana line pa?
Yep.
Some people like him all read the books because picking all by lining good blog, feature light blog.
Pina mana? Na best friend na. Da tu pla. Pasa me gana something. Da tu pla. Nem. Na sem. Gamers berasa abdiam lah apa.
Okay.
Dan gamers on lah. Berasa salah time berasa challenge Call of Duty.
One of my favorite book, Buk Bilong Pikinini.
Iya, Buk Bilong Pikinini.
Na newspaper tu sa talk pisin newspaper you read them too.
Iya, long list to have of me reading recently.
Na lo newspaper one of my favorite art lo read them.
I'm lol. Dead notification show level, dial show me so like looking.
You look out lo this.
Yes, okay.
You read them a book, lo big man too or anything.
Reading talk pidgin Bible son.
People must never forget that they have to read books. Otherwise, they will not actually comprehend written language, either from newspapers or books or such. Or if they have to do an assignment, they will get the words mixed up. And I've seen a lot of that in Facebook, where the spoken language is different from the written language.
Okay. And do you think kids get a little bit lazy with their languages, like slangs, adding slangs to pidgin? As from what we've observed, kids today are not speaking the pidgin that it was back then, or the English it was back then. It's different now. What do you think about that?
Yes, that is true. Even some graduates.
Well, certainly a lot of interesting and diverse perspectives there. And Isabel joins us now on the set of Point of View. Izzy, welcome into the studio. Just how was that out there? Tell us a little bit about the experience of going out there and speaking to people about reading.
Yeah, it was interesting, especially when we went out to the markets. We went up to interview 2 kids, and all these people just gathered around and they were like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? When I asked them the questions, they're like, oh, this is weird. Why is she asking questions like this? So I asked some of the kids, and it was really interesting to see that these 2 kids didn't know how to read. I asked them if they knew, and they said they didn't. And I brought them back from whatever they were doing. They were playing cards. So they knew how to play cards. They didn't know how to read, which I found was really interesting. So,
yeah. What do you make of that, Leanne?
Interestingly, children, as we mentioned earlier, they learn very quickly. So if they've observed, adults sitting around playing cards, for example, sometimes bingo in some settlements or even in the neighborhood, they tend to pick it up or work out, what the concept is very quickly. So that would explain the children there. So, and also what stimulates them, what's fun for them. So to them, they wouldn't realize that they're actually learning numbers and they've learned something. But actually, because it's fun for them. And for us, we're like what you noticed out there.
So if books were as readily available as cards are, then one would assume that there'd be a lot more kids learning English as well as learning to count as they get from cards.
Exactly. I went around asking some parents as well, how often do you read to your kids? And they said they read every day. When I asked these 2 kids, who reads to you? They said nobody reads to them. They'd rather spend more time playing cards or in social peer pressure things like playing cards or doing stuff like selling on the street, getting some money and stuff like that. They'd rather do that instead of going at home and their parents reading to them.
Yeah.
They don't spend as much time, parents don't spend as much time with them as they, should be. Yeah.
So reading the Bible was another interesting thing that came up in that, Has that been something that you guys have had an experience with?
Yeah, I've experienced it. I actually learned how to read full on, reading the Bible. My grandfather was a missionary, and 3 of my years in school was spent in the village. So I learned to reading the Bible because that was the only book in the house at the time.
Okay. Yeah, time to take a quick break, and here's some food for thought, some kai kai blong ting ting for you. Early childhood has a better return on investment than the stock market. So yes, we have the upfront cost of early childhood education, but studies in the US show that early childhood education is one of the best investments we can make. The estimated return on investment for high quality early childhood education is 10%. In comparison, the average return on investment in the stock market is 7.2%. From Buk Bilong Mixmaster Bilong Papa God right through to Stakwan, our most widely spoken language, Tok Pisin, has certainly given us some colourful expressions. What do you think, ladies? Are there any funny Tok Pisin expressions that...
Well, I don't know where Stakwan came from. If somebody can explain it to me, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that Stakwan came, it all started when this lady went to buy a pair of leggings and she didn't know what they were called, so she said, she's trying to describe the leggings and she goes, "This la Stakwan stuff." So that's where I have
the
from.
ones that stick to your legs.
Oh my God. So they've termed it now to mean what? Is it something affectionate or what is it? It's like...
I think, well, the way it's used, it seems to mean sexy.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's like, you know, they'll go, "You stuck one, yeah," which means,
Shapy.
Shapely. But it is funny how this Tok Pisin language has evolved. It's a hybrid language. It's got words that come from Tolai language, from Malay, from German, from Portuguese. And then we've kind of taken it to another level.
Oh, I had the security at where I live. I did my hair, as everyone can see. And I went down and I was like, "Oh, look at my hair, isn't it nice?" And he goes, "You need addition in it." So I said, "Huh?" He says, "Addition in it." I said, what does that mean?" He goes, "Add more stuff and condition it." So it's addition in it. Classic. And then he goes, "If you want it to be like a Papuan lady's hair, like really soft, you have to add fluffy to it." So what's fluffy? Yeah, add fluffy. Relaxer, apparently. So I just learned that the other day.
I mean, what was that story you were telling me about the opposition leader saying something? I know we don't want to talk about politics on this show, but what was he describing?
Well, the opposition leader said something in relation to the current government and said, Papua New Guinea is becoming Yalibupangianized.
Yalibupangianization.
The Yalibupangianization of Papua New Guinea.
Oh, goodness.
There's also this interesting term, Bus Bilong Lewa.
Oh my God.
Bus Bilong Lewa. It's funny to know that the heart is involuntary, like you can make it works on its own, but then we're turning it to something that needs a boss to work.
Outsourcing that.
But the one funny thing I came across was when I was in primary school and we had to move from the village to the town. So, I had to step up from speaking English. So I decided to, with my friends that we should start speaking English. And one of my friends, she decided, we were telling a story and I was relating to her about a guy. And then she goes up and say, "Who man?" It's a straight translation from Tok Pisin. "Husait man? Husait man?"
Man. Instead of "which man?"
But it's great, it's moving, the language is changing and evolving, I guess, to suit the generation, but too many shortcuts, I think. Anyway.
I'm an old-fashioned person, and I get very frustrated when I see these shortcuts happening. And, like we don't say "bilong" anymore, it's "blo." BLO. Tasol is now Chol. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, this is just not right.
Anymore. It's Bliu, like BLIU.
Bliu. Yeah, Bliu.
And boy, and like with the BWO.
It'll soon become Bo.
Yeah, but like a lot of people have asked me about that in my introduction when I said about Buk Bilong Mixmaster Bilong Papa God. So that was a term that was way back in the 50s, like in the colonial times, and that was basically what was widely regarded as the Tok Pisin word for helicopter.
Wow.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because there's a mixmaster, which is the thing that spins to whip the cake cream.
That's right.
And it's up in the air, so we've had some crazy expressions in Tok Pisin language. That's for sure.
Definitely. Now with social media, people can just talk how they speak and it kind of becomes normal. Like people just associate those words.
Yeah. I mean, in that context, in social media, I think it's probably okay. But, in a formal profession, like if someone sends me emails and they start doing that kind of thing, I just think it's really unprofessional. Yeah, it's too casual.
Especially when they start calling you blood. Like,
yeah.
We're not related. Okay.
I'm not your bro. all right? Well, we're going to take a short break now, and we'll be back shortly to wrap things up. Welcome back to the program, and we're almost to the end of this episode, but before we go, it's time for our rapid wrap-up. And ladies, I just want to give you each a few seconds to have a final say, whatever burning issues you would like to get off your chest. Starting with you, Cleopatra.
Yes, so I think the important thing that we should pick up from this conversation is that children are always learning, they're learning new things, and what we as adults, as parents, as role models should be doing is to create a positive environment that children should be able to learn in, and it comes back to us as individuals.
Filma.
Great. Well, I think I'm on the same thread. I think children, there's a saying that says children will do what you do, not what you say. So if you want to have quality individuals in our society, we should be quality individuals, I reckon.
Yeah. Leanne?
We've been talking a lot about books in this conversation and literacy, and it is important that without, books, there won't be much learning taking place. So as much as we can, we'd like to help with books from Buk Bilong Pikinini. So please, if you're able to, support Buk Bilong Pikinini through our upcoming fundraiser. That's on the 8th of April. And by doing so, it helps us get the much needed support to get out to the communities.
Yes, I just want to add my support to the Buk Bilong Pikinini organisation. It is indeed something that we're very fortunate to have available for so many children. And I also want to add to that Buk Bilong Pikinini has a children's bookstore at Theatrist at Waigani. So those of you who don't have access to books, who don't have a library, they're there, they're cheap, they're very high quality books, so get down to Theatrist and support Buk Bilong Pikinini that way. And of course the fundraiser on the 8th of April. And if you have anything to add, we would love to hear from you as well. Find us on our Facebook page. The link is on your screen now. Tell us what you think about today's discussion. Send us your ideas for topics you want to see on the show, or just pop on there and say hi. And now I would like to thank my gorgeous panelists, Cleo, Filma, and our very special guest today, Leanne Resson from Buk Bilong Pikinini. And thank you also for stopping by to join our chat. We'll see you next time on Point of View. Bye for now.